This podcast may contain strong language and spoilers. Some of the movies recommended and discussed are not suitable for all ages. Listener discretion is advised.
Dun 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 dun. I'm so ready to talk about spooky movies.
I'm so ready.
Hello.
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 Welcome.
That was a very sensual hello. Thank you.
Hello. Hello.
All right. Jeannie's here. It's Jeannie's episode. It's Jhenee time.
Have a special
Jhenee
welcome back. Yeah.
is the Jhenee that can read.
It is. It is the Jhenee that can read.
Although we're still questioning that since you shot the Jhenee that can read. It's a mystery. It's a mystery.
No one must know.
Alright, hi guys. That was a good intro.
Welcome back.
It's Adri and Jhenee, my bae.
Yeah.
Yeah. No Olivia today. It's me and Jhenee. We're gonna dance it
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Dance, Jhenee, dance. Yeah. Luke, don't look at me like that. Grayson, you neither. Mind your business. Alright. Yeah, I have both cats here with me. So, hopefully they'll behave. Grayson's currently looking out the window like he's about to jump up any minute. But
Oh my god.
I think they're going to be good.
And now that you said that, they're both ready to heavy metal scream.
I know, right? Luke won't scream. Grayson might scream. Depends on what happens.
true.
I'll say Luke's usually pretty good. If anything, you're going to hear Luke cleaning himself, unfortunately. Aw, Grayson, that was really cute. He, because they're laying next to each other, and Grayson, just rolled over, flopped his head back onto Luke. Nope.
Aww.
They might fight. Oh no, no fighting. Oh my god, really? You're just gonna belch.
Excuse me.
Yes, excuse you. Oh, Grayson, that was so mean. Jesus. He just shoved Luke off the bed.
Oh my god. That could only be one.
God, Grayson. Grayson's a dick, by the way. If you guys don't know that. He's a dick. You're a dick, Grayson. I'm just gonna shame you on my podcast.
Wait, did you do that on purpose?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Luke. Poor baby. No, Luke, you can't come lay on mommy. Oh my god. Why are you both like this? Okay, so it's the first episode of the spooky month.
Oh yeah.
Oh
First of the
yeah.
month.
First episode.
It's time to bump up the spooks.
Time to get spooky. Spooky. Aw. Lay down, Luke. Alright, so today's episode, we're going to talk about some classic horror movies, which would be the slasher genre. See, neither of us is really into this kind of, I know slasher movies, it's the big horror archetype, but I just know that neither of us is really, this isn't something we go out of our way to see.
Yeah, it's kind of just you've seen in passing, I guess.
Yeah. But it's also one of those that it's movies that everybody knows about too.
Yeah.
Which I found
But
interesting.
they're kind of an integral part of horror movies. At
Yeah.
least the kind of slasher genre.
Yeah. And it's a genre that's been around for for forever, since when movies were first being made. Other than the classic monster movies, but I'm trying to think what the original slasher was. Because it's not Halloween. I want to say it was The Town That Feared Sundown. I'm pretty sure that's right. And that was actually based on real life killings in Texas.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was a masked killer who was preying on teenagers that were like parked in their cars and stuff.
Oh, so it's kind of like one of those things that came from like myths that would go around.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, slasher movies. Okay, so slasher films, for those of you who don't know like what a slasher movie is, it's basically a movie where like a killer who's like usually masked, he goes around picking people off, and yeah, let's be honest, they're usually teenagers. And it's, you know, it's just a horror archetype that's in a way done to death, but also like when they make it more creative, you know, it can be kind of fun. It's also not one it's not one I ever go out of my way to see. Especially nowadays, you know, they're so gory nowadays.
Yeah, because I feel like, you know, we're kind of desensitized, so it's like, well, we need something else to, like, bump up the scare factor.
Yeah, basically.
So they just pour, like, 15 tons of guts on you instead. Although I feel like part of that is, like, I guess to scare you, but also, like, I guess to, like, unnerve you, or not necessarily, like, scare you in the sense, in the normal sense of horror movies, but, like, more so to unsettle you.
Yeah, that is what they do more nowadays. You really, like, slasher movies, you really only go just to watch, you know, people get picked off by these killers. Like, there's no other point to those movies.
Yeah.
Like, even the ones, you know, that I have listed, there's no real mystery to them, or, like, you know who the killer is, and, like, they don't ever make, like, a point of, like, revealing the killer, I guess, usually.
Yeah.
Like, I know the original,
sort of like to keep,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sort of like to keep the animosity, so you can never really understand, like, why they're doing what they're doing.
Right.
I feel like that kind of adds to the scare factor, though.
Yeah.
It's just, like, this mindless character that's just going around killing for whatever reason that we never actually learn.
Yeah, basically. I mean, they don't want you to sympathize with them, is what you're basically saying. Which, by the way, the Saw movies are not slasher movies. Because I know those are gory. They're torture porn movies. That's not something we're ever going to, I don't think I'll ever cover on, you know, any of these. Because it's not my jam. I know it's not your jam either, and Olivia's weird about stuff, so.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very specific that it's in that archetype of, you know, people getting picked off by a killer. And usually you already, like, you know, it's just, like, this masked killer. It's not, like, any big reveal or anything.
Yeah.
And they all have, you know, these are all movies that kind of have something in common. Like, a lot of the original slashers, they were based on, like, real-life crimes that, you know, kind of, you know, the original type serial killer type people. And, you know, like, some of the best known slasher movies are, you know, like, Friday the 13th, the series, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
You know, the real, like, classic Halloween movies that, like, you know, that they'll show in, like, old theaters and stuff like that. Like, they're the kind of movies that, like, I know some theaters will bring back during the season. Like, you know, they'll have, like, a special day that they're like, oh, yeah, we're showing this, you know, vintage movie.
Yeah, but aren't they, like, they're kind of, like, they kind of set the bar, and they're pretty much cult classics?
Yeah, they are. Even though some of them have been, well, actually all of them, all the ones I mentioned at this point have been beaten to death. They've been sequel after sequel and remade several times for especially Texas Chainsaw, which I will talk about that one because that's one of the more interesting ones on this list. Friday the 13th is probably, like, the most well-known, though. You know, like, not Freddy, Jason. Jason's, like, that sort of iconic, like, Oh my god, Luke, why would you do that?
Oh my gosh.
Thank
Just when we were
goodness.
praising you for being a good boy.
Thank goodness there was nothing in that cup. I would have been so mad at you. Ugh. You boys make me too old. Alright. now that Luke's not normally this aggressive. He's normally very well behaved. But I think he's mad because Grayson took his spot on the bed. Anyway. Jason's that iconic sort of character that, not even if like I've only seen like one Friday the 13th movie, and that's the first one. And that's the one that Jason isn't even in. God, Luke. I'm sorry. Give me one sec. Luke, get over here. Luke, you're naughty. I'm telling Olivia tomorrow.
We've had a run-in with the nasty boy.
Alright. Jason. Jason's one of those characters. Yeah, I've only seen the first Friday the 13th. And it's not even Jason that's in that one. That's like the killer. And that's one of the few slasher movies where like you don't know who the killer is until the very end. But, like that hockey mask sort of look, like that's a look in, especially like other kinds of media, like, that they show it and like people are just like, oh yeah, it's that guy. You don't even have to necessarily know who he is, but it's like something that you recognize.
Like he's put into like fighting games a lot.
Yeah.
He's like giant and tall and has the only weapon he has is like his machete.
I know they buff him out, but like they make him like a corpse at the same time. I'm just like, this is wrong. And that's one of the few that like you get a backstory for him as well. Not that like, the backstory makes him sympathetic in any way. He's just kind of like a haunted ghost or whatever in a way. Another one that like, especially now because, since Freddy versus Jason came out, I think a lot of people know, who both of them are. And then like they both had remakes come out at the same time as well. Which Freddy's a Nightmare on Elm Street. He's the one that, what he looks like, right? He's the one with, like, the burned face and the fedora.
Yeah, no.
He has, like, I
was gonna say, like, the red and black stripe, like, sweater.
No.
And...
No, he's the one with the fedora.
That. Just the guy with the fedora that creeps into your dream.
Yes.
That's what I'm gonna call it. Oh yeah, Freddy. Yeah, that guy with the fedora.
You didn't know.
Spooky guy.
You didn't know Freddy tips his hat and calls you Madame?
Oh my god. I'm leaving.
You didn't know he was a brony? Come on, Jhenee.
Oh my god. Reaches out with his fingernails.
Oh god. That's another that's another one, A Nightmare on Elm Street, that I've only seen like the first one. I never bothered with any of the sequels or the remakes. Cuz it's one of those that like you hear they're not good, so it's like
Yeah.
I'm one that like if I hear it's not good, unless like I've been like, I've wanted to see it, I don't go out of my way to go, waste my time. God, I swear, Luke wants me to beat him tonight. He's throwing the biggest tantrum. I don't know what his issue is. Yeah, you didn't know Freddy was a brony? I was about to say a boner, but that's not right.
Oh, no. No. The worst boner ever. He pops up when you least expect expect him, or when you least watch him.
Oh, poor Luke. He's all sniffly. His nose is bothering him too, so I'm kind of trying to give him a pass on this for being such an asshole. All right.
You know what you could call this episode?
What?
You could just call it Freddy the Boner.
I will. All right.
You heard it here first, folks.
Luke.
Freddy Krueger, the worst boner in the world.
Alright, to be fair, like, what... Have you actually seen any of these slasher movies?
I've seen, most of the first Nightmare on Elm Street,
Okay.
I believe. I don't actually know which one it was, but it was the one where, like, there's a chick... I know it was one of the... It was old. It was the chick, like, she's in a bathtub, and he, like, pops up.
Okay. I mean, that could either be the old one or the remake. Because they...
Well, I remember when I watched it, it looked kind of oldish, like maybe 80s or something.
Okay, then it was probably the first one. But you haven't seen Halloween? I thought we watched...
Halloween.
I guess maybe we didn't watch that while you were here. We watched a lot of movies while you were here.
We did.
Yeah, I don't think we watched Halloween. That's actually one of the few, because even though, I preach that I really don't like slasher movies, that's one of the few that's, like, a slasher movie that makes, like, in my top, favorite movies list. I think that's more nostalgia than anything. Halloween's the one with Jamie Lee Curtis. And, like, the killer's Michael Myers. Like, you know what Michael Myers looks like, right?
Oh, yeah. I've never seen him.
Yeah.
I say his movie like he makes them. He's really a director.
Not Mike Myers, you guys. Michael Myers. There's a difference. It's not Austin Powers going around killing everybody.
From way through, just pops in through the screen door.
As terrifying as that would be.
Shrek breaks in through the brick wall. Don't get the most horrifying horror.
Oh my god. Halloween's my favorite. I like the Scream series, but that's one that we're going to talk about like a little later because it's kind of in its own separate little category. It's still a slasher, but it's also like another kind of movie that we'll get to that. But yeah, I like Halloween. I don't appreciate how they butchered the remakes. They really did.
Oh dear.
Like, I don't know. Rob Zombie, for whatever reason, decided to make, like, total gore fest, and then just every other word was going to either be fuck or shit. Which was just, it was so uncalled for. But, like, they try to remake these movies, but they try to make them grittier. Like, that's, especially, A Nightmare on Elm Street, when they remade that one. Because they, like, they tried to make it grittier, but the thing with, A Nightmare on Elm Street, like, the original one, is that it was campy, but its campiness kind of made it more unsettling, because it, it's about, like, entering the sort of dreamscape, and that's where you die, So, like, having it sort of a campy character in your dreams, like, kind of made it more, it made it more unsettling. Luke, I swear. Just good boy. All right. He finally got his spot back on the bed. Yeah, Friday the 13th, I didn't see the remake for that one, so I can't speak on, like, whether or not it's any good. I've heard that it's not good. I've heard mixed things, basically. That it wasn't good, but it wasn't bad, I guess, because, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is an interesting one that I wanted to talk about. It's also one that I've never seen. I have never seen any of the Texas Chainsaw movies.
Oh.
Yeah.
I know I've seen parts of, I believe, I've seen parts of the original and the ending.
See, that's the only one that I'm willing to see, the 1974 version. Because it's, it's one of those that, it is a cult classic now. But it's also an indie film. Not a lot of people know that it started, as an indie film. Very low budget, but, when it came out, it shocked a lot of people because of how visceral it really was. And it is, I've heard that it's a very gritty film, but, the way that they, they capture all the gore and stuff, it's very, real, almost. Hi, Grayson. So, yeah, that's one that's on my list. It's also one that, they just... I don't know what it is about it, but they remake it over and over and over again. Because, the original, I think it had, 4 original movies, and then, they just all of a sudden started remaking them, every couple of years or so. That's one that, there's been, 10 of them, just in, our generation, which is super weird.
Oh, my God.
And it's not even just, remaking it, as it is, they're, branching it out into different, stories almost.
But it was, based on a true story of it?
It was based on a true killer. He was also the killer that...
Any of, the remakes aren't really, true stories or anything?
No.
Actual
no.
recounts?
None of them are, based on, any kind of true story.
Oh.
No. Leatherface, the character, was based off a serial killer, who I'm pretty sure was the same one that, inspired, Buffalo Bill. He's the serial killer in Silence of the Lambs. Buffalo Bill takes it in a more, dramatic route where, Leatherface, he, kills you and, uses your body parts for, the furniture and stuff and eats you because they're cannibals in that one.
Yeah.
Buffalo Bill, he, in Silence of the Lambs, he was a killer that, he only took women, and he would kill them and then he would skin them. He was, using their skin to make a dress. It was really weird.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. Don't worry, he never puts the dress on. That's never a thing you have to go through.
Oh, no.
I didn't want to talk about Child's Play, the Chucky movies, because I've never seen them, so I don't even know if they're actually, in that sort of slasher category. I only mention it because I know that for sure I think the first one is, but I don't know if, they stay in that sort of genre, And then, yeah, the Scream movies, too, but we'll talk about those. But yeah, you're not a slasher person, so there's, I can't really ask you, which one is your favorite? Because she's only seen parts of, each one. She's caught them in passing.
Pretty much, almost every, classic movie I've never actually sat down and watched the whole thing.
Right. Alright, we'll move on then. Because it's, Cabin in the Woods movies, they're kind of like slasher movies, which is why I sort of included them with this. Because it's, same kind of concept. There's, movies where, they're being picked off one by one, but the only difference really is that they're in an isolated setting. And, some of them, they'll take different routes, though, because they're not always necessarily, a slasher movie, because it's not always, an actual killer. Sometimes it's, a creature or something. And it's weird because, researching, the best Cabin in the Woods movies as well, it was, I haven't really seen any of these either. Because it's not always, these aren't always movies that any of us have actually seen. It's just that, talking about the genre itself.
Everyone knows about them.
Yeah, people that, you know about them, or, I did include, a couple that, I know I've seen. Friday the 13th is also on the Cabin in the Woods list, specifically because the first 4 actually take place at, Camp Crystal Lake, which, that's, the kind of Cabin in the Woods setting. It's an isolated area. It's literally, in the woods. And like I said, I've only seen the first one. I kind of mean to, like, watch the second and third one, just because, like, Jason's actually in those. And I don't know. Because they're, they're considered cult classics now, so I try to keep up on my movie, my movie list. I'll say another well-known one, other than Cabin in the Woods, like the actual Cabin in the Woods movie, which we'll also talk about that. That's in the same kind of category with Scream, which is why we'll talk about those later. The Evil Dead is one that they remade recently, but it's also one that's, very infamous for being a Cabin in the Woods movie.
Yeah.
It's also one a lot like A Nightmare on Elm Street, that when the original, remaking it, like, took away what made the original so good, because the original one was very campy. Like, the Evil Dead movies were meant to be humorous. They're not meant to just be, all visceral gore and blood and everything.
Yeah.
Which, if you don't know what the Evil Dead is, it's Cabin in the Woods. And, like, it's this book. I forget what the book is actually called. But, it summons the dead, basically. It, like, turns, like, I think all of the party members, like, in the cabin except for one guy into, like, these zombie creatures. It's like, basically, like, it's bringing them back to life. So, like, when the one person, like, kills the others off, they, like, come back to life. It's also one that I haven't seen.
The remake or the original?
Both.
Because I know, I actually, I think the remake was, like, a couple years ago, like, 2014, 15-ish?
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, and actually, when I had seen it, I actually didn't know that it was a remake.
Yeah. It's kind of why I brought you on this episode, because that's one that, like, Olivia hated, and she'd go on and on about how much she hated it, so I didn't need that right now.
Oh, dear.
Because it's extremely gory, the remake is.
It was, and it was...
Yeah.
It was kind of dumb.
Yeah. And, like, the point of, like, the original was that it is kind of dumb. Like, it's supposed to be a really campy, kind of funny almost movie. Which they are. I've heard that they're actually pretty funny. Especially because, like, I think they're based in the 70s. Like, the main character, like, if you know those movies, like, you know who the main character is. I can't remember, like, the actor's name. I know the character's name is Ash.
Isn't it Bruce Campbell?
Yeah, it is. There you go.
Yeah,
it's Bruce Campbell. Because I watched, like, my top 10 lists, and that was on there, and there's always, like, one scene that makes me laugh whenever I see, like, when they play a clip of it, because he has his weapons, he's getting ready to, like, fight a bunch of zombies. Like, I forget what they say to him, but they, like, zoom in on his face, and he goes, groovy. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, that's probably the most accurate reaction. I was like, oh good, it's Scooby-Doo.
Groovy.
That's such a Rowan reaction. To mention my trash son. Yeah, so I guess you haven't seen Evil Dead at all. Like, you remember, you saw the remake.
Yeah, only the remake.
Yeah, okay.
And then didn't they, like, make a continuation? It was either, like, a TV show or something like that?
I think they were talking about doing a TV show for him. Because Bruce Campbell's supposed to come back and, like, play Ash. But I don't know if it got started or not. I have no idea. I don't watch TV, so. Yeah. Okay, moving on, because we have more Cabin in the Woods movies. I added, because you had mentioned this one, we were talking about this topic, The Strangers, because that's another one that's on my list. You remember what that one is, right? Are you there? Oh.
I did not. What time for thinking?
I was like, where does she go? The Strangers is the one where it's like the couple, they're in like their cabin in the woods, and the three masked people like show up and they start torturing them.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's one that's on my list. It's also one that I don't know the ending of, which is good. Because a lot of these movies, like, you hear about them so much that, like, eventually you figure out what the ending is, or you hear what it is. Despite being on my top 10s a lot, I don't know the ending of it, which is good. Yeah. It's also one that, like, I think it came out in 2008. I don't know why I remember that, but, it's not talked about a lot, but it's one that, like, always keeps popping up in, like, my radar, you know?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause you get excited whenever I mention it, too, so I'm just wondering, I don't know, is there, like, a reason behind your excitement for it? 'Cause it's not one that you've seen, is it?
I don't think so.
Yeah. You're just not going to answer the rest of my question. No, you're just going to be awkwardly silent.
I honestly can't remember.
You can't.
It like the people like look like I can envision what you're talking about, like but I don't know if I've actually like seen this one, or maybe I did like during the one time of the weekends where I just watched like 8 billion horror movies with my mom, but I can't remember if I've actually like seen the whole movie. Oh dear.
You answered already that if you hadn't seen it or not. My other part of the question was, like, why you got so excited whenever I mentioned it.
Oh. I did?
Yeah. I mean, you do. It's, like, one that I bring up and you're just like, oh, yeah, I know that one. And it's not, you don't usually, like, bring that much, interest into something that I mention. Like, movie-wise, anyway.
Maybe it's, like, one of those, because usually, like, if, half the time, like, if a horror movie, like, if I remember particularly enjoying it, like, I'll remember the movie itself, but not the name.
Okay. It's one of those that has an interesting concept, though. And it's one that, like, if you know what it is...
That's probably it. Like, I remember seeing it, and it did something interesting, maybe. It had an interesting concept, but maybe, like, it fell flat at some point.
I mean, just, it's just one of those that most horror movies, I mean, unless they build up a hype or, like, they go, over expectations, they don't get talked about a lot anyway. The exceptions in recent years basically being, like, the Conjuring series or, like, because it just came out. I feel like a lot of people are, going crazy over it for other reasons that we're not going to discuss on this podcast because y'all are nasty.
You're nasty. You're nasty. Stop it.
I'm trying to think of it. Oh, and Get Out, because, Get Out was a huge, a different concept and stuff. Yeah, it's, horror movies are weird because you don't know really if they're good or bad, because a lot of people, they base it on whether or not they got scared by it. And that's not necessarily, how I judge my horror movies. Because really, like, the only one that ever really unsettles me nowadays is The Conjuring. And that's only because of, like, the very last scene. But I've seen it enough now that it doesn't really, bother me anymore. Because, yeah, a lot of my horror movies aren't necessarily, like, I wouldn't consider them scary. They're just, I mean, that's, what all movies are. They're just movies that you like or you enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, when I talk about horror movies, like, the ones that actually scare me, they are not in my house. Because I don't want to look at them. Jhenee understands.
I do. I feel it. I'm sure we have the DVD for The Ring somewhere in, like, our storage.
I'll say yours specifically, though,
not even in the house.
Yours specifically deals with TVs, so it's, you know, it's one of those that you kind of, you like keeping it away. Because there are a lot of interesting ones out there that, like, you just don't hear about. You know, it's like you see the trailer for it, and if you remember it, you know, eventually you'll, oh yeah, I know that movie. I meant to watch that one.
Yeah. I was interested in that. Like, I remember being interested in the trailer. I remember being interested in Lights Out when the trailer came out, because I believe it was a short movie at first, or like a little, like a short movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it got made into a movie. And so usually, like, if a horror movie will appeal to me, it's because, like, the trailer kind of introduces like an interesting concept, but usually, like, you know, it comes out and you don't hear about it. It means that it didn't really deliver on that concept.
Right. Which I think is why Paranormal Activity also, that's one that, like, it was a newer concept that, not so much a newer concept as much as it was a concept that got sort of remade. And it's just that they did it really well, you know? Plus they also advertised it as being, you know, this is somebody's home movie footage that we found and put together. Like, I remember, you remember those trailers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, obviously, you know, that's not true.
I don't think they can do that.
They can't do that yet.
Oh, no.
The way all this is going. But, yeah. Alright, so the two I did add on my Cabin in the Woods list that I've actually seen. One is, actually, it's a movie that's been on Netflix, and it's gotten some pretty good reviews. It's called Hush. And it's actually about this, I'm pretty sure she was deaf. Yeah, it was a deaf woman, and it was just, like, random thing that this killer decided he was gonna, you know, he just felt like killing somebody, I guess. Basically,
you
it's
know,
like,
as serial killers do.
You know, like, stalking her and, you know, around her house. Like, even goes so far as, like, you know, she, like, writes on the window, she's like, you know, I didn't see your face, you know, if I call the police, you know, you could still get away from this. And he takes his mask off, and it's like, well, you've seen my face now.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, it's one of those movies. It was actually pretty interesting. I liked it. I didn't like it enough to, you know, call it, like, my favorite or anything, but it was pretty good. Because, you know, it's different, you know. I like that they're kind of adding in a lot of these disability characters into movies nowadays. Which I think is a reason I liked The Village so much. Because, you know, the main character is blind. Because, like, like I said, I get why people didn't like The Village, but get over it.
Drop that mic.
I can't drop my mic. It's expensive.
That's fair.
Because it's one of those, it's always something that I like playing with, the idea, but it's also one that I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I'll probably eventually... Well, I have Ryan, you know. Ryan's deaf, so... Yeah. And Adrian goes for a while where he doesn't say anything, so I guess that counts.
That's just because he's an Adrian. That's what he wants. And he was raised by
he's traumatized. Sorry. Yeah, so Hush was pretty good. And like I said, it's on Netflix, so if you want to check that one out, because I know Netflix movies are easier for you to get a hold of. But my last one for the Cabin in the Woods movies is actually a Stephen King movie, based on one of his books. Misery. You've heard of that one, right?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, it has Kathy Bates.
Yes.
Yep, okay. You're still aware of what we're talking about?
Yeah.
And I included that one, not so much because, well, she does, go so far as to kill people, but, because it deals more with the isolation than it does with anything else. The slasher movies, they're a dime a dozen. Cabin in the Woods movies are also a dime a dozen. Like, there's so many. It's just, like, I only picked, like, some of the ones that either I know or, like, are the most famous. But, yeah, Misery's an interesting one simply because it deals more with the isolation than it does, like, a killer picking somebody off.
Yeah.
Because, like, that Annie's eventually going to start killing people because she's very unsettled. That's a rough watch, the Misery. Because if you don't know what that, like I said, it's Stephen King. It's actually one of the best book to movie adaptations of his stories. But it deals with a writer, and he actually writes a series, basically. The series is called Misery. And he gets in a car crash outside of a really small town. And he's rescued by his number one fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember hearing about this one.
Yeah. That would be one, if you don't like people, being bodily tortured, that's definitely one to kind of avoid. Because there is a scene where she takes the sledgehammer to both his ankles.
Oh, dear!
Yeah. That was a rough watch. Because he's, he's bedridden because of the accident. And, she knows who he is, and, like, she has all his books, and, like, he has, like, the last book of the series, and, like, it's still, like, it hasn't been printed yet. It's still, like, a transcript. And he lets her read it, and she doesn't like the way it ends. So, yeah, she hobbles him, and, is basically keeping him captive until he fixes the book. Yeah, things get pretty intense.
Oh, dear.
That's actually one I have. I always forget that I have Misery. It's not one that I, like, go out of my way to watch, because it is, like, she's really unsettling, almost to the point where it makes you uncomfortable.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Especially because, like, her backstory is that, she's a nurse, and, like, her backstory is that she got fired because, she kept killing babies in the hospital. Yeah.
That's a red flag right there.
Yeah, should be. But, I guess not to some people.
Just let her go. Let her go into the open world. It's fine.
I think it was that they, like, couldn't prove it was her or something. But the worst part was, like, you only find out, like, her backstory of this because she, like, kept all the newspaper clippings. And it's like, what the hell?
Oh.
Who does this? Alright, so that you get a chance to talk about one of your favorite horror movies again. We're going to bring up because this is one that, like, it's a good one to do in the horror genre specifically because horror movies are so cliche. It's something called meta movies. And meta movies are basically movies that are self-aware of their cliches. But they're also movies that, like, because they're aware of them, it's like they bring it up, but they still go through with the cliche. Which is something I did have to explain to you last time. Because there's, like, since we were doing slasher Cabin in the Woods movies, there's two infamous, like, in this category that are meta movies, which is the Scream series, and then, of course, Cabin in the Woods.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'll let you talk a little bit about Cabin in the Woods first, and then I'll talk about Scream. If you want to if there's anything you want to say about it. Anything specific?
I just, like, in general, I went in like, kind of expecting, like, a typical campy horror movie, like, which has, like, just a typical cabin in the woods movie, and I expected to just, like, go in and laugh, and then at some point just be enshrouded in total darkness and hear people, like, shuffling around and screaming, and I can't be scared because I can't see what's happening. But, yeah, they incorporate, like, this, more elements than just, these kids are just being, like, dumb, like, teenager or college kids. I don't know if they were specified in the middle of, or in a cabin in the middle of the woods in the middle of the night, because that's a thing that people do, apparently. And, yeah, and then they have all these elements. You have the typical, the high school kid stereotypes, like the jock and, like, the easy girl / cheerleader kind of girl, and, like, the nerdy girl, and then there's a stoner in there. I'm sure there's a black guy, but I'm also positive he dies at some point.
So Scooby-Doo, basically.
Yeah. Just not as good because they don't have a dog.
Aww.
Now that I think about it, though, the stoner dude actually did look a lot like Shaggy.
He does, actually. Yeah.
And then during the movie, you find out that they're actually, like, part of this, like, ritual thing, and they're, like, being watched, and it's almost kind of like I thought it was funny because they are kind of like, the people watching the kids are kind of like us, essentially. They're like, oh yeah, look, we're going to make them kids, and then we're going to fuck them up and shit.
Yeah.
And the main reason that it implanted on me is the badass scene at the end where the two people that are left alive are just like, hey, there's this button, this one, like, automatic eject button that just unleashes this, like, maelstrom of, like, every horror movie cliche ever invented from their cages from the void, because for whatever reason they needed one single button that releases them all.
But of course.
And then, of course, whoever designed that, if they weren't killed in the maelstrom, they should be fired.
It's video game rules.
And
keep going.
We needed some way to tie it all together. And then, yeah, and then there's, like, all these, they have all the soldiers with the automatic weapons, but for some reason, no, they all get killed, which, understandable. And then these two teenagers with, like, one pistol and a knife managed to, like, make it all out. So, that makes sense.
Hey, to be fair, they had, like, a giant snake in that zoo. Like, I remember that scene. I only know that scene specifically. So,
Yeah.
What's a gun gonna do to a giant snake?
That's true. So really, no one would have a good day.
Exactly.
Well, just in general, like, how it brought together, like, all those monsters, and you got to see all the blood and the gore get thrown around. There was a murderous unicorn at some point.
Murderous unicorn. See, now I have to watch it. I mean, I was gonna watch it anyway, but that's just, that's the cherry on top. Also, Thor is in it, so, and Sigourney Weaver, my queen.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, I have to watch it anyway. It's actually one that, if you've seen The Evil Dead, it takes, it's very, the kind of setup is, a lot like that. Really, if you've seen, like, any of these, like, any of the slasher Cabin in the Woods movies, like, that's the setup for Cabin in the Woods. Like, that's the point of the movie. Probably the only Joss Whedon movie that will ever be praised ever again.
God.
I know. Calm down. We'll hate on him another day.
He'll get his own episode.
We'll just have that one episode, everybody in Hollywood that we hate.
What a scandalous episode that'll be.
Oh, God. Ben Affleck will be dragged to hell that day. Jesus. Because none of us like Ben Affleck. Olivia especially. And it's sad because, like, Olivia and I are going to end up fighting, like, in a fist fight during that episode. Because there's, like, a bunch of Hollywood actors, or, like, people in Hollywood that I don't like, that she, like, adores. And I'm just like, I don't understand you. Mark Wahlberg. I mean, I don't have an issue with Mark Wahlberg, but it's one of those. George Clooney. Fuck George Clooney. I don't know why I thought of him, but just George Clooney. Anyway.
Is one of them Seth Rogen?
And I think with George Clooney, it's just that he's so fucking smug. He just knows he's good, but he's not as good as he thinks he is.
You hear that, George Clooney?
He doesn't know how to take criticism. Anyway. Damn it. The worst part is there's a movie coming out that I kind of want to see with Matt Damon in it. I don't know if you've seen the previews for it. I think it's called Suburbicon, but it's a George Clooney movie.
I did not.
Oscar Isaac's in it too. I'll send you a link to it later, but because it's like set in like a suburb area, and it like looks like very normal, like kind of those weird like quirky normal suburb movies. But then all of a sudden, like, the mafia gets involved, and like they're just going around killing all these people. I'm just like, what the hell? But yeah, Matt Damon's in it, and I like Matt Damon enough, you know. He's pretty cool. His only downside, kind of like, you know, like Chris Evans only has the one vice, that he's a Patriots fan. Matt Damon's one vice for me is that he's best friends with Ben Affleck. Anyway, what a tangent. In conclusion to all this, fuck George Clooney. Anyway. Alright. The Scream series. Because that's one that Wes Craven's really good at making meta movies. That's actually his, you know, his thing. He's made a lot of meta type movies. Scream being his, you know, really piece de resistance, I guess. And it's one that actually, it's not that old. It started in the 90s, and the fourth one came out not too long ago. I think I was either still in high school or I had just finished high school. It's actually one that's kept its original cast through all four movies. It's how Monica from Friends kind of got her big Hollywood debut.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's also how she met her husband. Well, her ex-husband, because they've divorced now, which is really sad. It broke my heart.
Aww.
But because they were cute, like, in the movie and as, like, an actual couple, so, you know.
Aww.
But, the Scream series, there's 4 of them. I think, 2 and 3 are okay, you know. It's kind of like the continuation of it that you really want to watch those. Like, the first one, I really like. That's another one I actually own. And surprisingly, I've actually seen all the Scream movies. It's weird. I don't remember why I got into them. I think it was one of those that, like, I saw it at FYE, and I was like, you know what? I'll buy it. What the heck? Because it's another mask that is very well known, the ghost face. And I think, actually, the very first Scary movie, you know what those are, right? Like the parody, yeah. The very first Scary movie, Scream is one of the ones that they did.
Yeah.
But I don't even know where to like start like talking about these because they're very interesting. Because it's
Is
like
it
even
I never actually knew that it was kind of a meta, like kind of poking fun at horror movies.
yeah. And
Is
even
it kind
like
of one of those ones that's meant to be like cliche or like pointing out cliches?
it is. It is meant to be. Yeah, it is meant to be a meta movie. Because, like, the characters themselves are very self-aware of, like, the rules of, like, the horror movie genre and, like, what you need to do to survive. And how to, like, cheat the system and stuff. And it's stuff that, like, they say, like, in movie, like, in character.
Yeah.
And it's also one of those, like, the first one especially... Actually, the first and the fourth one, they both had a good reveal of, like, who the actual killer was. Because you really don't know until, like, the very end. I say, out of all four of them, probably the first one is still the best. But, because I don't want to give it away. Because those are movies that I'd recommend to you and to the lovely public. I said that very sarcastically, but I don't mean it sarcastically.
I am babe.
It's just because, I love Jhenee more than you guys. I'm sorry. She's my bae. And they all, like, I know all the killers in, like, each of the movies, they all have, like, some connection either to, like, past killers or to, like, the main characters themselves. And, like, the first one goes, like, the full typical, like, slasher movie horror route. And then, like, the second and third one, they kind of incorporate this, like, they go meta with the fact that, like, the sequels of horror movies are always, like, worse than the original, in a way. Which I found, it's kind of cool that he did it that way. And then, like, the fourth one is almost, like... the meta in a way of, like, the remake of the original, you know? The fourth one actually, because it did come out recently, like, in the past, it's 2017, past, 5 or 6 years or so, but, it has, I can't remember her name, but, she was a meme for a while on Tumblr. She was the, God, I can't remember her name. I'm trying to think of, like, what she says. What does she say? Like, you'd know the meme. The, like, I'm back, bitches. And it's, like, that gif of the girl, and she's, like, walking in the room.
Oh, the one who's, like, surprised. I bet you thought you had seen the last of
Yes, yeah.
Is that her? Oh my god. I thought it was like American Horror Story or something.
That is American Horror Story, but she's in the fourth Scream movie.
Oh,
she's in it, yeah.
Yeah, I remember her face, but I've never known her name, I don't think.
She's kind of a hoe, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I kind of feel bad that I don't know her name, but at the same time, I don't really care. Yeah, she was a meme. The I'm back, bitches. I bet you saw the last of me. Yeah, she's in the fourth one. You still there?
Yeah.
Okay. You got really quiet. I was like, oh no, my speaker blew out. I was gonna be sad. But, and, like, the, like, yeah, the lady who plays Monica in Friends. And,
yeah.
Drew Barrymore is in the first one, very briefly, but she's in the first one. You'd actually probably recognize, like, everybody in the first one, because they're, like, all actors that are, like, well-known in the 90s. The guy who plays Shaggy in the Scooby-Doo live action, he's in the first one.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're interesting movies. Because, they all kind of follow the same continuation, and, like, the characters, I think that was one of my favorite things about it, is that, like, they kept the same actors for the characters themselves, like, the ones that continued on. Because, you don't really see that in really a lot of franchises. Especially ones that old, you know?
Yeah.
Because it was like, I don't know what it was about the 90s, but it was just like they didn't care like who they brought in for the character in like a sequel or something. It was just like, wait a minute, I know that's not the guy that was in the first one.
We're just not going to talk about that.
I know, right? Like they had so many Batmans. George Clooney.
God.
He's in like the worst Batman movie ever. That should be a sign, you guys. Fuck George Clooney. That's not fair, because Arnold Schwarzenegger and Uma Thurman's in that one too, so I can't really say that. This was just kind of fun to talk about, because it's not one, it's like, it's a subject to kind of, you know, throw out there, you know, for scary movies. Like, these aren't really episodes that were like, you know, critiquing the movies themselves. I mean, because neither of us are really fans of the slasher genre. You know,
Yeah.
It's like, we know about the movies, I guess. They're like the infamous horror movies in a way.
Yeah, they've been like mentioned in, I forgot the word, media. There we go.
Yeah. Whether it's like...
They've been referenced in pop culture. So
yeah, they're huge.
plus
Yeah,
they're,
that's
like,
what it is. They're huge.
My only knowledge of Scream is really from the first scary movie.
Of course it is. Yeah, they are huge pop culture references, because it's like, if, you know, you watch any, like, even cartoon shows, you know, they're ones that, like, pop up. Or, like, even, like, going shopping for, like, a Halloween costume or something, like, Ghostface and, Jason are huge, like, you always see them, you know? You always see those masks.
Yeah.
I actually used to have a Ghostface mask, but I think it got ruined, so I don't have it anymore. I'm, like, looking around my room for it, but I don't see it, which is probably a good thing. They're interesting movies, like... especially the ones that, like, are the classic, you know, original kind of these kinds of movies. Because it's, like, the birth of, like, you know, where all these other movies came from, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, they're the ones that kind of set the bar and,
yeah.
you know, kind of like a time capsule for how the world, the country, at least America was during that time.
Or even so much just Hollywood itself. Because, you know, these were, I mean, it's a genre that really birthed, you know, kind of gave horror movies their huge start, is the slasher genre. And I say that specifically just because, like, monster movies themselves, they're their own specific genre. They're not always considered horror. I am so ready for The Shape of Water, but that'll be for the next episode where I gush about that. She's gonna fuck a fish man, Jhenee. Oh god. I'm actually really excited for next episode too, because it's you and Olivia talking about all these monster movies, which of course, you know, we'll drag Olivia again for the vampires.
Yes.
But because, you know, monster movies, like, there will be ones that I mentioned that it's kind of like, oh yeah, that is a monster movie, you know? Plus we'll get to talk about it a little bit for the next one as well, even though you haven't seen it. But you haven't watched it yet, have you?
I might, actually. I might probably this weekend.
Okay.
Maybe, probably, hopefully not.
I know, you're kind of like, please no, but yeah, like I said, Georgie's probably the worst one.
I'm looking forward to, like, being scared, because that's, like, I enjoy being scared, and I enjoy being scared, but I would, yeah.
I know.
And just too busy, like, why are you doing these dumb things?
I know. Like I said, really, Georgie's probably the worst one. Because it's the only death that you really see on screen. Like, you don't, yeah. So good luck if you do watch it. I'll be there for you if you have to sit through it.
Probably be texting you and like screaming and like Snapchatting the whole thing.
I'll just
I want to go home.
I'll just keep
When
sending
I
you the
am
clown.
home.
I'll just keep sending you the clown picture. You'll just think about that the whole time.
Cute little clown.
I
Little
know.
group.
He's been so corrupted. I hate the internet. Not that he wasn't corrupted
God.
before. Y'all are nasty. Like,
God,
oh,
nothing is sacred anymore.
I know. Not that this was ever a
God,
thing that
this is
should have been
ridiculous.
sacred. Jesus Christ. I'm still trying to get through the book. I always say that. I'm just like, I don't even know how I'm going to get through this thing. It's huge. I could kill a man with this book.
100 episodes later. Yeah, I'm still trying to get through the book, guys.
Don't give me that look, Luke. I'm totally reading it every day.
Luke, you can't even read.
Aw, you don't know if Luke can read or not. He probably can't.
But can he?
He's very dumb.
Exactly.
I love you, Luke. Alright, so anything else you want to say about slasher movies?
Cabin in the Woods is a good movie, and you should watch it.
It is.
It's
I
not just
plan to
YouTube.
watch it.
The ending. Just go to YouTube and watch the ending scene with all the monsters.
The scene with the zoo. Just watch the zoo scene.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Although all in all, it was actually kind of a fun movie to watch. I wasn't
Yeah.
very scared, but it was very fun.
I mean, Chris Hemsworth is in it. It can't be all that bad.
That's true.
I like our long, drawn-out silences. I always have to edit our episodes.
Yes.
Not that I don't have to edit Olivia's episodes, too, because she says some crazy stuff, and there's sometimes I'm just like, yeah,
dear.
it's not staying in.
I'm waiting for the day that you just like peacefully record a video with her. She goes to listen to it, and just everything she says is just bleeped out.
That would be
She's
funny.
censored the whole time.
Like, you listened to the second episode where I had to, like, bleep her out. It was awful.
Yeah.
I really, because we already recorded one of our other episodes for this month, so I have to, like, because she kept saying clown. Damn it, I'm gonna have to bleep it out.
Oh my
but,
God.
like, I had to keep bleeping it out. I was like, why? But, yeah. So, slasher movies, they really are kind of the birthplace of the horror movie genre. They're really what kickstarted it, what got people into it. Really the reason that, scarier and scarier movies have come out. And of course, in a way, the birth of the torture porn, unfortunately, but we don't speak of such things.
She's like a monstrous.
I know, it's just, it's just not my jam. Which is sad, in a way. To me, it's kind of sad, because, like, the trailer for the new Jigsaw movie looks good, but I just know that I'm not, I'm not going to be able to stomach through it. Yeah, so, next episode will be, both you and Olivia, which will be fun. It's always fun. And it'll be next Thursday. And then, yeah, because it's monster movies next one. I'll probably rant about Godzilla for a while, but we'll get over that. And you can talk about, because zombies are monsters. They're technically monster movies, so you can talk about some zombies if you want. Some zombos.
Yes, they're very close to my heart.
They probably shouldn't be, because they'll eat it, but,
That's
be wary. Be wary of your heart. Unfortunately, we'll have to sit through Olivia talking about vampires, but we'll get through that as well.
God. And shame her the whole time.
I know, we will. We'll just do that.
It's the only way I can get through it.
Right, that's the only way I can get through anything vampire related.
Vampires.
Alright. We're all done? Yeah?
Yeah.
You're so quiet.
Um,
Answer me.
yeah. Bye, mother.
Like I said, next episode, monster movies. Next week, this episode, slasher movies. They're okay.
Look forward to it. We'll see y'all next week. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Hell yeah.
yeah. All right. All right, Jhenee. Goodbye.